Thanks so much for saying you're in. So everybody, every other, this is going to be a bi-weekly conversation with content creators. It gets a chance to kind of get to know content creators and how we think and our thoughts on Black culture, Canadian news that affects Black content creators. And so I thought this is going to be fun. I shared it into the channel. If you're not following me, then you probably didn't see the message that I sent out. So these creators said, I'm in. I want to talk about these two topics, which is the whole Jada Pinkett Smith's book that came out today, I think, right?
No, it came out
Yeah,
last week.
Was it
Didn't it
last
come out
week?
last week?
it's the
I thought it's releasing
17th.
October 17th, which is
Oh, it was?
today.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's just been
Okay.
doing tours
Oh,
leading
that's
And
up to
why.
yes,
it.
and then also yeah, and about like the I feel like I'm in an entanglement right now with them
Not an entanglement. Oh my
that I
goodness.
didn't ask for.
Listen, and it's not just you, it's the whole population. We did not ask for this entanglement.
Yeah, we're in a group chat that we didn't. It's like
We
we're in a
didn't ask to be
broadcast
in.
channel that we didn't ask to be added to. Like, take us out the group
Not at
chat,
all.
please.
And then we'll also be talking about like whatever that or if you have any insight or any information, myth and facts about the Bill C-11,
11.
which is a bill to regulate online streaming that's just becoming or became law actually. So thank you y'all for saying you're in. This is my first time talking to you, Troy, but just a quick
Yes, it is.
what's just give me a quick elevator pitch, each of you, of who you are and what you do as a content creator or what type of content you create.
Ladies first.
I knew that was gonna happen.
ABC, Karis Maggie.
Oh gosh, all right. Hey everyone. My name is Karis Maggie. I do content about cultural experiences, food, and Creole languages, and I'm also a social media enthusiast and marketer. So you can catch me talking about social media every Saturday as well.
Awesome. Michelle?
All right. So I have two things. A lot of the content creators who I've met recently, like yourself and Guys Maggie, know me through podcasting. So I do have a podcast called A Shot of Melanin. It's about amplifying Black Canadian voices because I do find that as Canada, we do have some great content creators out here too, but it's very under wraps. We're kind of under the radar compared to our American content creators. So it's just about, bringing them up and getting other people to listen to them. I also have a more of a personal thing for myself. I love fashion, makeup, skincare, hence my being Mimi. I also like to do reviews. So I recently did a YouTube video on Love is
Oh,
Blind, which I will be doing a live tomorrow on our A Shot of Melanin podcast page. So check that out. But that's it.
and Troy?
Troy Campbell across all platforms. I just create content trying to inspire people to become their best self. I also create content based around relationships, which obviously we're going to get into today.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a family channel called The Campbell Cloud, which I kind of promote being a family unit and a nuclear family because I believe in family, I believe in love, I believe in marriage. And yeah, I do that on YouTube as well.
Awesome sauce. And I'm Shirley. I am the community builder and podcast host and producer of Black Canadian Creators. So make sure to check out. Oh, and also announcement, I am also officially part of Black Pod News. So I'm writing for that.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so if you are a Black Canadian podcaster, any type of news related to the podosphere of podcasting, I'll be writing for Black Pod News newsletter, which is a collaboration between Black Canadian creators and Black Podcasters Association. So shout out to Corey for that opportunity. Thank you. All right, so let's get to it. Jada Pinkett Smith has a new book called Worthy. Okay, and we all found out that they have been detangled for the past
Not detangled.
7 years.
Kind of, sort of entangled. Kind of, sort of.
They're
Yeah,
still,
She kind of
yeah,
switches it up every other day.
it's confusing. So yeah, mhm.
yeah.
Like
So
if we were to talk from like the content perspective really quick, since we are creators, we have to say she's doing an amazing job actually selling the
Oh
book
yeah.
and getting us to talk about it. Because
Yeah.
us as creators, we know that we have to come out with the most exciting, extreme thing to say for people to pay attention. And I think she's doing that.
Yep. Oh, 100%. She knows how to play the system. I don't know if she has a great PR team, but mwah, chef's kiss. She knows what she's doing.
Amen.
So when y'all found out the whole, they've been separated since 2016. What did y'all think? Maggie, like, what was your thoughts? Like, were you just a shock or not
I
shocked?
wasn't. Honestly, I wasn't shocked because I feel like from they did Red Table Talk, there was, I don't know, the vibe of the relationship always seemed like business partnership. Like I felt like I saw a switch in how they communicate or just interacted with each other in the public. So it wasn't a shock to me. I was just annoyed because I'm like, why didn't y'all like why wasn't this knowledge from the time that you had the red table, both of you, talking about the entanglement thing with August. So that was the only part I was annoyed about because I'm like, that was the perfect opportunity to kind of like just put it out there. But then I listened to the interview she did with what's his name?
Oh,
Jay
I know, with the
Shetty?
guy who used to be the monk,
Jay
right?
Yeah, and
Shetty?
yeah,
Yes.
and she basically revealed that she was ready. Will just wasn't ready for that news to come out yet. So that's another thing I want to talk about, y'all. Who's saying Will is a victim?
Ooh.
He ain't a victim. He's a willing participant. They are both annoying together. So let's have
Yeah.
energy for both because he even have his own book that he talked about. Like he has, you know, they both have traumas. So it was two people who had traumatic childhoods that got together, had their expectation of what they wanted to build in terms of a family that they didn't have, and they were young and figuring out life and what their relationship looks like. I think what's annoying is just how they fed into or like took the benefit of the attention of being relationship goals and portray themselves to be that for a long time, just for it to not be that. I think if they didn't portray themselves that way, doing the red carpets and the pictures and the interviews and giving advice on how they keep their relationship spicy, I don't think people would have been annoyed. But it's because that was the image that they projected. And then it's like, why are you shocked that we're mad at you? Because we're getting information we didn't want to know for years now.
Yeah. So. Yeah, Jabbar Bishi, and I'm sorry if I am like
butchering the
names because I will. My French side just kicks in, and I want to like make it super fancy, and I just can't help it. It says not right for each other, but I hope they work it out. I hope that they can give that what the other needs. Michelle and then Troy, I'm fascinated, Michelle, to hear what you think, and super fascinated, Troy, because especially the content you make is related to relationship. What was your thoughts when you thought the whole 7 years? Really?
Just going off of one of the comments that it says here, it says I was annoyed because it's only because she's dropping this book, and this was by Captured by Shannon. I felt the same way. It was quiet. Like after the whole Will Smith smack, Chris Rock, it was quiet. There was nothing about them, which was nice. It was a breather. And then obviously this book comes out, you have to create buzz. But that's the only reason why she decides to talk about it, because her book was coming out. So I too was a little bit annoyed because I'm like, I'm exhausted hearing about the Smiths in the news. If it's not Jada, it's Will. If it's not Will, it's somebody else in the family. So I was just a little bit exhausted. Like, here we go again. Are you serious? Like, I would have rather they just put everything out on the table and be done with it. But I guess, you know, you have to be talked about. You have to, you know, create some sort of stir, some sort of buzz. And so I think that was the whole goal. I was a little annoyed because after watching that same interview, I was like, where did this book idea come up from? And then we find out it was Jay's idea. I was like, are you, I bet you $10 that man has some messages in his inbox right now.
Oh, probably. Like, what did you start?
Yes. I was just kind of like, I'm over it. I'm really over it. I can sympathize with the fact that, like Karis Maggie said, they were young, they got into a relationship, and they're just kind of figuring this thing out. I can definitely sympathize with that.
I do too. I'm not married, for some of you who may or may not know. I have been with my life partner. We've been together, and him and I for like since high school, so it's been 25.
Wow.
So I was actually even watching that interview. I remember when they first announced that they were together, actually when they got married. And I was really surprised the fact that she took his last name, because I always saw Jada as a very, like, outside the box, progressive kind of woman. So for me, like, I thought that was like, even for me, I was like, that seems a bit out of character from what I know of. I've been, a fan of Jada since A Different World. I'm showing my age. So, so I remember seeing like, that's odd. Like, I would never think that she would be the kind of person who would take his last name. I thought she would just, continue her career as Jada Pinkett. But, you understand who's the one who has the bags. So, Troy, what is your thoughts, especially as I mentioned, you create content that relates to family and being a parent and all of that. What did you think?
Well,
What do you
it's
think
hard
about
because, like we brought up, we don't even know if they're together or not, right? I literally heard her say, "We're married on paper, but we're separated right now. We're not married, but we're working things out, but we're not going to be together." So, what does that mean? Okay, so to me, this is leaving a relationship in the gray zone.
it?
And right now, I'm speaking with three beautiful women. Okay, and I want to let you know, all right, if any man, and you can agree or disagree whether it works for a woman, but for a man, if he leaves the situation in the gray zone, that means one thing. He's not really interested and he's just trying to reap the benefits. Okay? He's either with you or he's not. And I
Right.
can say the same thing for a woman, potentially. You just brought up how she took his last name, which is kind of odd. Like, oh, why would she do that? She's a progressive woman. Was there some sort of alternative motive as to why she took his last name? Is she using Will Smith? Because let's be real, Jada Pinkett Smith, whatever her original name is a great person. She's an actress. She's done well in her life.
Rochelle's
But
face.
look at Will Smith. Will Smith is a legend. She's using Will's name to sell this book right now. She's using Tupac's name to sell this book right now.
Yes.
She's using Chris Rock's name
Yes.
to sell this book right now. All right. Without these three men, does the book sell? I don't
Well,
know.
let me challenge. Do you think though they understand, is she using his name, or they understand that his name, and that's probably why she has taken his name as well, his last name, is understand the strength of it and the capitalism machine that's behind it, like, do you think that in some way that he's part of that too? Like, he's like, look, like, I'm working on being the biggest star in the world, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be a good look for my brand. Like, as much as we say we put it on her, right? Do you think in some way he pressured her, like, look, we have to present ourselves like we're traditional, right?
Okay.
So take my last name, because that could have been a conversation too. Take my
Mm-hmm.
last name. It's gonna be a better look for not just you, but our whole entire family. If you add the Smith, and it's just gonna look good for me as I strive to become the biggest actor, like Schwarzenegger and Stallone's and all these kind of big names. So you think in some level there's that too, that dynamic, because it takes
It
two
takes two to
Yep.
for,
For
it's not
Yep.
sure.
all
And I
gonna
would
fall on
respect it.
her.
I would respect it if that came out. So this woman is about transparency, right?
Right.
About being authentic. That's what the red
Table
table
talk.
talk, whatever.
Right.
So be
Right.
authentic with us. For the last 7 years, you haven't been authentic with us.
But
You've been
she argues
apparently
the reason why she wasn't is because Will wasn't ready.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I said he's not a victim in this, because I don't know if people have actually read his book,
I did.
but there are a
Okay.
lot of issues that he, in his adulthood, had to work on as well. So it's like both of them have their
Yeah.
issues that they needed to work together on, but also separately, because individually they still didn't know who they were.
Right.
And so I do see Will also as a person that it's his way or the highway kind of a guy. And in the earlier stage of their relationship, yes, even though she's progressive and whatever, I sense a lot of compromise mostly on her end, because he was the big star that was in the making and she was the the wife on
Supporting
the
wife.
shoulder. Yeah, because they even said that on the red table when they talked about it. It was her, the mother, Will, and I think Willow, who was on the red table, and they talked about that in their relationship when there was a shift where she's like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore of
Yes, that's
adoring
true.
you and seeing you as a god or whatever. Like, I want to do my thing too. Like, there was a time where she finally like spoke up about what she wanted. So I think, as I said, both of them are, they seem to have an open communication and it works for them. I think it's just rubbing us wrong how they presented it to the public, and she has taken accountability for that in the interview. So what I would advise people is not just look at clips that you see on social media, watch full
Watch the
interviews,
whole
because
thing.
they have
Yeah.
more context where she
Read their books
actually,
too.
where
Yeah,
she
because
does give more context and takes
yeah,
accountability for her
I
part.
honestly, when Will Smith did the slap, because a month or a couple of weeks before I read the book, before it happened, honestly, for me, it was not a surprise. It made total sense. I was like, yeah, that's his personality. I felt like when he did that slap, we're actually
Ah,
seeing
ah,
Will Smith,
for who
and
he
we're no
is.
longer seeing Will Smith acting like Will Smith, the superstar.
Mm.
Do you
Yeah,
know
he
what I
does
mean?
give
Like,
me the impression that he has to put on a front, a
yeah,
face. There was something in specific that had happened, and I was kind of like taken aback by oh, it's the way he approaches the camera. It's very like ready, set, action, and it's really like putting on a facade. I also do know, I don't believe it was, I'm not sure if it was in reading the little snippets of his book, but I do believe a lot of it is stemming from childhood issues, his
yeah,
relationship with his parents, how his dad was abusive. So I do
yeah,
think his need to control the situation and
yes,
be the fixer, because I remember even in Fresh Prince, the reunion, he was very much into things need to be controlled and need to have like a set order. There was even one point where you could see Will mouthing other people's lines.
yeah.
So I think it's also him. I know some people don't want to hear this, but I do think it's also him as well. Like, it's not solely just Jada. I think like you guys said, it takes two to tango.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Don't you get the
absolutely.
same vibe from Jada though? I get the exact same vibe from Jada. Like whenever the camera's on, they're not authentic. I see acting. That's what I see when
Yes.
she's talking. I don't see authenticity at all.
Yeah,
I I don't know if I see her acting, because I sometimes I feel like when the camera comes on, you see that moment of like she's annoyed and then she puts herself on.
Yeah.
Whereas it's automatic with Will. Like the camera's on and he's already ready. You know? So I understand they're actors, right? So they're going to do what they do. They act. But it
and
just
protect the
seems
bag.
like that's it. It
Yeah.
just seems like, for one, I can't really fault them for that couple's goal. A lot of it is ourselves for putting them on that pedestal. We should never
Mm,
be putting celebrities on that pedestal. We've seen it
mm.
time and time again. Kanye and Kim. Who else?
I don't know why that's a thing. 'Cause-
So for people to be big mad, it's like, but history has shown you celebrities who were considered couples goals, who, you find out their whole story and their whole situation,
and
and you're
then
like, and then you're devastated. Now I know people are like turning down the Charismatic. He sent me a video where there's a guy listening to J. Cole's,
I
what's the
want
song?
I want the something
Uh,
real love. That's
you know
something
how he says
real
that
Oh,
love.
the
Jada and
Jada,
Will love?
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
turns
yeah,
it
yeah,
When
down
it
when it
comes
says Jada
to
and
that
Will,
part.
and it turns it back up. Like, I just feel as though, to be honest with you, this whole thing is exhausting. It's just it's exhausting.
What
Here's a
someone asked,
question.
is their behavior a reflection of the culture at large? I would
This
think
is
so.
where I was
Ooh.
going, Jamar. Yes,
It
Jamar, this is
is.
exactly the question I was about to ask. Is,
Because why did they
do
have
you
to
think in some
pretend?
way they're challenging our ideas in terms of marriage? Because and like I said, I was shocked. I was surprised when she took his last name. I always saw her as someone who's progressive. She also talked about like when she got married to Will, it was like a bit sad for her because she didn't think of doing the traditional big wedding kind of thing. So I feel like there's some aspect maybe they are where they are because either one or both of them weren't super honest. I feel like in Lean's More, she wasn't very honest in terms of with him on who she is, that I'm not traditional. We don't have to do the whole marriage thing. But he kind of, and I get
Yeah.
a strong feeling based on what I've learned about his book and understanding a bit his personality, that I feel like he probably pressured her too. Like, yeah, but
And her mom.
it would look better for the brand, or I love you and I am about that traditional aspect, right? So
Mhm.
how does that work in a marriage if somebody moves in a traditional way and the other person does not? Does
It
it present
doesn't.
itself the way that
Doesn't
it is now
Her
that
mom,
you're
exactly.
her mom
seeing?
too. She did talk about, like, I think Will was aware because she did say she never wanted to get married. Her
Yeah,
mom was the one who pushed for a
that's
Yeah.
wedding because she
right.
was
If
pregnant. So it was very clear. I think it was just both of them trying to figure out how do they make the marriage work for them. But of course, you have society's expectation on you. They're both,
public
thriving in their career. I mean, if
figures.
it's gonna help, maybe the couples go apart. We're in a capitalistic world. Maybe that helps with their
Yeah.
brand of being that a
Yeah.
couple, and it helps them in other opportunities. So they just kept it going, but eventually they just couldn't. And they're like, you know what? I think the switch came when the red table came, because they were literally bringing people on to be authentic and to share things that we have never heard of before. So I think that's when they were finally like, you know what? Let's just share. And it does make sense that we are now hearing certain things now, because they can't tell us all the good things now, because no one will want to buy the book when it actually we know it already. So you
Hmm.
give a little at a time. That's just the game. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna hop off so that
Yeah, I wanted
Liberty can come
to,
on.
yeah, I'd love to for Liberty. If I hop off, then it stops. Yeah, it does.
It
Yeah.
Okay.
stops. So
And
I'll come
yeah.
off. I'll come off so Liberty can come on.
Okay,
We'll
Liberty,
see you in a
come
bit,
on.
Charismatic.
See you in a bit.
Y'all go follow Charismatic for all those people who are in the chat. Just saying.
Okay, I'm bringing up. I
Liberty.
see you,
My bestie in my head is coming up.
Liberty. Welcome, welcome. Check out Liberty.
Hey,
Before we go into this whole Jada and Will, I don't even know if we're gonna have time to do the Bill C. Maybe we might have to do it in the next like 2 weeks. But what are your thoughts? First, give us your elevator pitch and your thoughts on the whole Jada Pinkett
yes.
Smith worthy book and
Greetings,
everything.
greetings, greetings, everyone. I am Liberty White. I help women, primarily women in business, get their story out through video and content. And boy, I said, Jada, get that
Not the
story.
patois coming out. Okay, all right.
No, like I had time to prime, right? Because you all just listening to everybody's take and everything, and I was just like in the comments. Oh man, what has not what has not been said? You know what? I actually want to take it in a little bit of a different direction, and just really thinking about, like, yes, she's Miss Independent. She was, and she tried to have that element still to a degree in the marriage. But what about, like, even censorship a little bit? Because
Mm,
I like what was said about the red table talk. The persona it had is like this safe space where you bear all, but they, as content creators, we only put out what we want to put out.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
yeah,
that's
that's real.
That's true.
that's super facts. And I was just like thinking about that, like, oh, and then when it comes to bite you in the butt, because she couldn't have predicted, or no, none of us could have predicted what would have happened, with the Oscars and things like that. But again, all press, what did they say? What's that PR saying of, there's no such thing as bad press?
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
even with that, they let it die down for a little bit, and it's like, all right, let's go get some more money. So
How
yeah.
would you, how, if you guys were as content creators, because you're right, this is great publicity, right? The
Mm.
timing,
Right.
and maybe in some way that she talks about, like when they came to the table to talk about August, and her entanglement with August, she said that she was ready, and I thought the same thing too. I think that would have been the best timing to say we're not together, we haven't been together, and but Will was not ready, right? And I think Karis Maggie mentioned that a little earlier too. How would you advise Will and Jada as content creators to? Do you think it was smart to move the way that they're moving, or would you advise in a different way as a content creator? How would you do it as a publicist for representing the Smiths?
Well, they discussed beforehand. Apparently, they discussed beforehand that they were going to come out on that red table talk and say, "Hey, we're going to let the world know that we weren't really together." So this entanglement wasn't necessarily an entanglement. It
Right.
wasn't cheating, I guess, right? If that's the way we want to put it. Then Jada said, "Okay." Will said, "Okay." Came down to it. Will didn't want to go through with it. He didn't. He couldn't say those words. I guess he couldn't talk about it and say we're not actually together. But then she still decided to put it out. Okay, so she still puts it out. Fast forward 7 years later, it still kind of seems like Will's not ready. Will's not really
Yeah.
Yeah.
talking about it. And
Yeah.
she's putting
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
out
Yeah. Yeah.
there now. And she's
Yeah.
putting it out. Okay, so it's a little fishy, if you ask me. Okay.
Well, does that now, and I have that question for you, Shirley, because I did not read the book. I've seen some things, as we do when content gets released, but how much does that speak to him and what's going on in his world? And sorry, there's just so many thoughts right now because I'm like, oh well, you know what? That's how much actually shows how much she loves and cares about him, that she's sacrificing. Because
Yo.
when you heard that, were you not like, oh wait, so you mean that entanglement wasn't an entanglement because it was?
There's just
I
so
think
much
she had the
layers.
opportunity to go on and tell her truth, but because Will, like what Kara's Maggie is saying, she also was going to do the red table by herself, but he wanted to do it with her. I think there's that sense of controlling the narrative with Will.
Yep.
And with Jada, it seems, as you can clearly see, she could really let it all out. But with Will around, he has to control the situation and say, this is what we're going to say, and this is what we're not going to say. I'm not ready to discuss this. Okay, we can discuss this. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. Like reading his book and getting somewhat of an understanding of what he chooses to present, who he is, because again, I'm very specific on using these words. What he chooses to present from his book is that the overall theme that I got. It was like his book was an introduction that I'm ready to be like Will Smith, Willard. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, and that's who we saw at the Oscars, and his book was saying, I want to be Willard now. I no longer want to present myself to the world as Will Smith,
Will.
right?
Wow.
And so, but there is this sense of definitely control, and I think at the same, it's so funny. I feel like their dynamic is he has a very strong sense of control, however you want to see it, because some people see, positive, negative. It's he has a deep sense of controlling his narrative and what is around him as well. And I get this deep sense, which I was really baffled by with her, of protecting him. And I was like, you're constantly doing work to protect him, but what about you, girl? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the annoying part for me, and I don't know about y'all, is what I'm most annoyed with both of them is that they've presented themselves with, especially Red Table Talk, of like you mentioned this, Troy, authenticity. We're authentic. We're keeping it 100. We're putting everything to the table, to the red table, right? but what about the earth table, people? Like, you didn't put that.
Mm.
Like, I understand you want to protect your privacy and it's your relationship, but I felt hurt. I felt in some way, some sense of like breaking some form of a trust, because if you're and here's something that's interesting for us as content creators to think about, right? How many times you've seen content creators who present themselves a certain way, asking the audience a certain thing. You're asking me to watch the type of content, and you're telling me your content is about being 100 and authentic. And then I'm finding
Mm-hmm.
out that you're not meeting the same expectation and
Yeah.
pillar and mission statement from the content you've been presenting. So it's leaving us like, what?
Can I ask you guys something?
Yeah.
And just be honest, no right or wrong answer. Okay?
Be
Okay.
authentic. All right.
Oh, look at
Be
us.
authentic. If the roles were reversed, okay, and Will was the one who got caught cheating, whatever, 2016. Look, because let's be real, they're married. It was
Yeah.
cheating. Okay?
Yeah.
There's no if and it was adultery.
Right.
Okay? He was the one that got caught cheating. Right? He came out, whatever. Yeah, this is what happened. And then she didn't really say anything. She was very submissive, and she just kind of kept her mouth shut. And then all of a sudden, 7 years later, he's like, yeah, we weren't even really together. So like trying to almost come up with an excuse, like, yeah, we weren't together, so it was all good. How do you think the headlines would read towards
I think
Will
it,
Smith, the
I,
man?
I think it would read pretty bad too, because cheating is always kind of looked like down upon and almost kind of more harshly on men than it is on women.
Right.
So I think it would have been probably worse, if not the same.
Yeah.
Personally, I would argue worse.
Okay.
Like, she would come down on this man. He would be a villain.
But
He
you
would
don't
not
think
be
they're
a good
crucifying
guy.
Jada? Like, you don't think they're crucifying her? I've heard a lot of
Yeah.
Oh,
chat
yeah.
from people, and they want her to. Amanda Seals, did you not see the video, ma'am? Stop talking. they're all coming down on her, telling her to shh, be quiet.
Yeah. But the thing is, she
So-
knew that she'd be vilified too. And that's why I'm kind of shocked. Like, I think it's the fact that you're making moves to protect him so much. I think in some way it's creating this vilification on her. And she
But
said
here's
she
the-
gets it too. She knows that she was going to be.
And here's
Right.
a good point that Chid brought up, and she said Will is, and I think wants to be a very specific brand, whereas Jada gives me a round the way girl who doesn't care too much for her brand. So she may not even care that she's being vilified. I think at this point she just wants her truth. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
At this
Just to be like,
point, she wants to make
free
some money,
from
and that's what
drugs.
she's doing.
That part too, but there's okay. She's if what we're saying, like let's put the pieces together of the control, the brand, and she's very free spirited. She's very much like want to move her own way. She was in a rock band, like all the things that she would like to try and test out. And it's like, okay, I don't want to be in this box anymore. And she also has to, if we are on this PR theme, reinvent herself. So here's this opportunity to come back in and okay, let me share it. There's also something I wanted to touch on, and for many of us, and Troy, you might want to chime in on this as well. When you are in relationships, no matter which way it goes, there's this bond that happens, and even if it might look crazy to the outside world, but it's like, but this is how we're moving.
Yeah.
And
Makes sense for
so,
you.
yeah.
And,
so
and that's why I
there's
feel
something to
like
be said for that.
their relationship in some way is kind of, that's why I say like they're challenging the ideas of traditional marriage, you know,
I
like
think even traditional relationships, because I don't know
relationship,
anybody
right.
whose child comes to them with ayahuasca and says, "Hey, mom, try ayahuasca."
Right. Cares Maggie says, remember that Will talked about caring what people think about him. Very true. A whole lot. He
Yes.
shares that a lot in his
Yeah,
book.
that's true.
And his life growing up. I don't think it's something he has gotten over. So yes, he will want to control that brand look.
Yeah.
Very good point, Gary. Yeah.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Very.
Does anybody want to hop in? Should I like hop out? Didn't you have like other people? I could hop out.
They're not here. I don't know, Cares Maggie, if you like raise your hand, or anyone else want to hop in, raise your hand or send a request.
There was a question here from a Yoshine Dean, off topic. How does everyone view Will after Chris Rock's incident? Is Will still a victim of this?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yoshi, that's how you say it.
Yoshi. No kidding.
That's, yeah.
Carrie's Maggie, you want to hop in on this one? I'll hop out. Carrie's Maggie. Well, you guys can go and answer it, and she'll answer it in the chat.
Answer it first. Go ahead and answer those.
I was, as soon as I heard the whole not being together, I was big mad for Chris. I was like, wait a minute. So it's like, it felt some sense of like false pretense, false reaction. Even her saying like, I'm wife now? Ooh, that had me like, oh no, not fair. Maggie, what was your thoughts?
I was like, we could have kept that in the draft, sis. Like, that part. I'm like, God damn, now he out here looking crazier than he already looked. Because when he did it, I was thinking to myself, I know some people were split. Some people were like, well, you know, he's defending his wife's honor. So like actually when she came out and said that, I was like, where all y'all who said he was defending his wife's honor? Because the wife didn't even want the defending, okay? Like she actually made a statement when it happened that basically insinuated that she didn't agree with the slap. So now to say, well, I was more shocked that he called me wife. Not even the slap surprised her, you know.
Yeah.
Is the wife part surprised her? I was like, well, goddamn.
Yeah.
And then to know that there is a relationship between, you know, what we saw that happened with Chris Rock. Some people said that the joke that he said, it's not even usually written by the persons who say it. They are given the jokes. Mind you, he can decline, I would say, if he wants to do that or not. And something she talked about, her rolling her eyes, she was rolling her eyes mainly because she just saw this as a hit, not mainly on her, but alopecia and people who have suffered from it and just people who have reached out, sharing their experience with her and everything. But for some reason, she said she felt in her heart that something like this was going to happen. So the slap didn't surprise her. It was him calling her wife because when it happened, she, you know, said to Chris, I told you, she's like, don't even worry about it. It's about some other stuff. So she knew. It seemed like there was already some issue between Chris and Will that I don't know
for some years. That just the back and forth and the Oscar just, so black, no, Oscar so white, like it's some deep-seated history side of things. Something my therapist at the time had said to me, he asked me about it, and then he said from his clinical perspective, he's like, I think what we witnessed was a nervous breakdown in that moment.
Oh, and yeah, I can see
in that moment, because he had the Oscars, he had there's just all this stuff. He's about to make history, whatever's going on at home. I said, going on at home.
And his mom wasn't at the right. She was like, I'm staying home. I don't need to be there. Maybe he felt a way about that. Yeah.
So just all of those things. But then, yes, even with the clinical diagnosis, if we say a prognosis, that it was like, oh, going back to the idea of what we present is like, ooh, losing respect for him and just how that was delivered. And I think somebody even has shared around that time, was like, we were so focused on them. Did anyone mention, like, think about Chris Rock, this old man got licked by a younger person, and what that says. So those are just my
in the video with what's his name again, Michelle, you could spell it out for us.
Jay Shetty.
Yes.
Sorry,
Jay
Shetty.
Jay, we'll call him Jay. In that interview with Jay, she mentioned, oh man, I think I lost my train of thought, but she mentioned about she didn't go into details, but that how Chris Rock and Will had a history. Plus, she also mentioned the fact that I guess, and I could totally see that, like before, revealing to us, to the world, not to us, but to the world, that they're not together. Industry news goes, is a lot more faster than finding out, getting out there to us. So I think he thought or heard through the grapevine that they weren't together. And so he asked her out, and then she said, oh, no. She was like, what are you talking about? We're still together. But meanwhile, they probably weren't together. And so he was like baffled, and he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. So I don't know. That's a little bit part of the history. Plus, like, now you have Tommy Robinson from In Living Color saying how he had kind of like, he met Willard and not Will Smith when at a trailer, when he was like, had a kissing scene, and there was a miscommunication between the producers, and Jada said, like, she, because he's like, you need to do a kissing scene. He's like, I'm not going to do it. We need to kind of, we didn't even do a practice run about this, right? And then he's like, I'm not doing it unless Jada says she's cool with it. And she said she was cool with it. So maybe there was a miscommunication there, that she probably didn't inform Will, like, oh no, we're about to do this kissing scene. But then he had that Willard same energy that he gave to Chris, but he didn't slap him. So like, I don't know, I just feel that there's a lot of layers. But here, like, as content creators, do you think what we present to the world should match the type of content? Because it goes back to that, like, I think people get surprised, and you've mentioned this, Liberty, right? We choose what we present to the world, right? As content creators, is that like, maybe that's a lesson one-on-one for all of us as content creators? Consider what you present and make sure that it matches, or is it okay to be choosy on what you present, and but your life is like not the same? Like,
Yes.
how do you feel about that, y'all?
I personally don't think it's possible. Well, I think it's possible. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think being authentic and your true, genuine self has to relate to your content.
Mm.
For instance, I talk a lot about being or trying to be a good husband. Not to say that, I am a good husband. I don't know if I am. I'm trying to learn how to be a good husband. But if I'm really an a-hole at home, that's not a good thing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be authentic. I remember when I first started creating content, being this, hey, what's up, guys? Blah, 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 trying to be this outgoing, whatever. And it's not real. People can see through it. You have to be your authentic self when it comes to creating content. And that's just my opinion. You can fake it till you make it, and that might work. But in the end, the long run, the long haul is being your true, genuine self.
Yeah. Yeah. Liberty, Maggie, what are your thoughts?
Liberty, go on, Miguel.
I was like, go ahead, Maggie. So it's interesting. I was trying to like quickly look up the definition of content. I think what we're saying is like, should our values match when we're creating content? Because I think that if you're creating content, I always say this, even though it's from a business perspective, is like, what's the end goal, or what's that goal? So if your goal in creating content is not to show up as your authentic self and to fit into whatever mold that is, like I do these prank things, but I'm just doing them for whatever, I think that personally, and this might shock y'all, I think that's okay, because you're creating it for, if we're using just the language of creating content. Now, if it's a personal brand, should it align? Should it connect? Yes, because you're saying, like, you're basically telling the world, this is who I am, this is how I flow from that perspective. But if you are creating content for the sake of creating content, and there's this business model or whatever you have behind it, does it need to be connected to you personally? No.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That's
So almost like influencer versus like actor. Right?
Boom.
You can create a skit or something that doesn't really align with your values, right? But then I get upset when I see those people trying to sell me a product. I'm like, whoa, that's not the real you. Don't sell me a product, bro.
Right.
to get really deep
because
into the conversation.
In a way that doesn't fit how they would usually do other content. Yeah, I definitely agree with everything everyone has said, and it actually was a point that I put on my story when I was preparing for this conversation. Like, I watched that full 2 hour and how much minutes interview, because I'm like, let me get all the facts and information before I come on this live today. And there are other things she talked about. Mental health is one thing, and that's something I've even shared with my audience of how I've struggled. I think with being a content creator, there's kind of this pressure to show to everyone that you're doing so well all the time. And I've been honest on my platform. I'm like, y'all, I barely get paid for brand deals because sometimes they don't want to pay. Okay, and that's just the truth. And there are sometimes I get offered brand deals, but it doesn't align with my values. So I just won't make money because I'm not about to promote a product that doesn't align or that I don't believe in. And I have, thank you, but it's because I've learned from the lessons of other people. There are so many content creators that you see, they're so popular. There was a time in their life that they were doing so well. And then 5-10 years later, they're getting exposed for things that they did and all of these things. And it's like, wow, but everyone loved them at the time. And I'm like, I'm so glad that I just stayed true to myself. Even right now, I have a lot of people sending me the ad that I did with Meta about the Google, the social media certification. And it's like, great. But in that same breath, I've also shared my story of how right after that shoot was done, the job that I was working at that I mentioned in that video, I got laid off. I talk about all these things because I'm not about to portray myself as this person who has it all together. I'll celebrate my wins. I'll celebrate my painful times. But I also am very careful of what I share. So even right now, I'm currently engaged, getting ready to get married, and there's certain content that I'm not gonna share. Like I didn't share how I got engaged too, because that's a story I want to keep for myself. Instead, I use the opportunity with that story to share, here's what I've learned from the Will and Jada situation of the importance of alignment and relationship. And if it resonates with people, great. But I'm not about to do trendy stuff for clicks and views, and then later on it comes bite me in the rear end. No, thank you. Manala stress.
Yeah. So we're not expecting a Caribbean table talk from you. Is that what you're saying?
A Caribbean talk?
Like a Caribbean table
Oh,
talk?
heck no.
Damn.
No. No. No, if we want to talk about the truth of, just navigating content creation as a whole, yeah, man, we can talk about that. Tell me, when you never have no money to make content, let me know exactly what was the turning point. Like those stories I'm interested in, because I feel like too many of us, we see people's wins and we're not really sure what they had to do to get to that point, or like the struggles in between, because sometimes they don't share that. And I mean, it's okay if they don't want to, but personally, I'm just going to share because I don't want people to portray me a certain way, because I don't have it all together. I'm still trying to figure out life just like everybody else. So yeah.
Same. Earlier you said that you Liberty, the definition of content. I have from Webster, Merriam-Webster.com. It said three things. It's very interesting because dictionary.com, I'm like, oh, I don't know. But it said something contained. Okay. That's example 1A. Example 1B is the topics or matter treated in a written word. In our case, it could be in visual or audio work. Or 1C is the principal substance, such as written matter, illustration, or music offered by, it says a website, but it could be offered by any other, format. Very interesting. Something contained, it really sticks out for me. And the principal substance.
Yeah.
Because
Girl,
even if we
unfortunately,
look at like authors, and I think what it really speaks to, and again, Troy, just loving that example of like influencer versus actor, or because if we look at, say, even from when TV started or even radio, there's a bond that happens with whomever that talent is. What there's a saying that goes, if you want to maintain your heroes, like never meet them, because who they actually are, how their life is not necessarily going to line up. Not necessarily that it's intentional. It's just, there's just so much that you don't see about that. So just even looking at it from that perspective, books, like an author will write a book, but that's all made up, but we expect that. So when we see each other, when we're online, we don't necessarily expect it not to be true, because this generation is growing up. I think Charismatic, you had said that in something of like, people don't read. It was some post, it was the Jada, it was on the West Indian post, and they had posted something about Jada and Carnival, and you were like, this is not actually true, we gotta go past the headlines, which is, it's facts.
It's this is the reason why when I go out in public, I make a point that I tell people, I'm an introvert extrovert. I'm really introvert by heart, but you put something, a camera or a microphone in front of me, I become a total extrovert. And I learned that from people like, I love RuPaul, I watch Drag Race. So it was something that he said where it's like he's an introvert, and I totally understood that because he becomes extroverted when he's in drag, right? So like being a content creator, having that microphone, having microphone or a camera in front of me, you're seeing a drag aspect of myself. It's still me. It doesn't mean I'm not authentic, because I'm not going to present myself to my mother as a content creator. I'm going to present myself and be with her as her daughter, right? Just like when you're at work, you present yourself you're still you, right? Life is complex, and that's what makes the world interesting. And it's something that listening to the interview, watching the interview with Jada, it was a reminder that relationships as well are complex as well. I think we are reacting the way that we are just because their content, what they presented to us, wasn't quite aligned to what was actually happening. And I think that's why the world is reacting the way that it is. So it's something for all of us as content creators, like, hey, as a reminder for all of us, right? Like, does your content, which is what did it say, the principal substance, does it align with who you are? Right? Okay, so we were supposed to wrap it up at 1:15. We didn't get to the Bill C-11. Maybe we can do it in 2 weeks, if unless there's something else in Black culture that presents itself. Black culture will always take precedence. But before we go, Troy, Liberty, Maggie, please let everyone know what's coming up or where people can find you. And then maybe one of you can hop off so that way we give a chance to Michelle as well to do the same. Thank you. Before you go into that, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you saying that you are in. And I hope that we can do this every 2 weeks, like, different content creators, or I welcome all of you back as well for the next, Topics Tuesday. But Troy, go ahead. Let us know what's coming up, what's happening. Where can we find you?
Again, Troy Campbell on all platforms. You're going to see me talking about building authentic relationships. I believe in traditional love. Unlike this whole Will and Jada thing, I believe in the traditional thing. I want to get married to one woman. I want to be with her. I want to have children. I want to have that nuclear family. I believe the world is in a lot of pain right now. And I believe the way we really repair the world is through love and relationships. And that starts with getting men and women back on the same page and communicating properly. So that's what I've really dedicated myself to trying to do, to help the world in that way, and allowing men and women to learn about each other again, because I think we're just so far apart right now, that it's really good to just talk about it. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us jump on this wave, we can start to get on the same page again. So that's what I'm all about. Troy Campbell, give me a shout if you want to chat. You have any problems, let's chat it up. And that's it.
Thank you, Troy. Liberty?
Yeah, this was a fantastic discussion. So thank you for even inviting us to the stage. And like, shout out to everyone in the comments.
I know.
Yes, y'all. Thank you. Thank you for having lunch with us.
Right. There's all of this back and forth. And so I have got a workshop program, I should say, coming up. So I'm super excited about that. Like all this stuff that we're talking about, creating content, getting engagement, and really the authentic self. I will say the program is so that you can show up as your authentic self online, because the holidays are here. And people are looking for products. And so people are like, hold on, where's I want to buy that. So you want to show up so that people can find you. Your top of mind awareness is called the Make More Content Holiday Accelerator. It's in 30 days. Get all your content together so that come American Thanksgiving, Black Friday, that's the beginning of the shopping spree, you have your content ready so that it's just click, click, click. You should be getting those notifications. Okay, so makemorecontent.co is the website. I am Liberty, and I've enjoyed it. So follow, engage, send DMs if you have questions about content creation.
Awesome. Karis, Maggie, tell us about you. What's coming up? Where can we find you?
So you can find me at Karis Maggie TV on Instagram. Well, all the social media platforms. I also have a YouTube channel where I dive into content. Right now it's Creole Heritage Month, so over there you're going to see lots of content related to Creole languages, really empowering them so people know they are legitimate languages. It's not broken anything. What's coming up? I have a project I'm working on right now, season 2 of my food series called Kitchens of Toronto, and I'm working on the pilot episode right now. And for all my peeps, for us in the Black community here in Canada, Little Jamaica is an area that means so much to us, and this season is focusing on ethnic communities and how they've been affected by gentrification, construction, and even COVID. But I don't want it to be a sob story. I want to tell the history, talk about the people behind the communities and the stories of the restaurant owners, because there's more to food than just the food. There are people behind them as well. And a big announcement, I recently got nominated by from the real.
We didn't
The
even use
real
the
web
wig
Blup,
color. We're
blup,
fest.
just
blup.
like,
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Real web fest. I got my series season 1 of it that I did on my own. I'm so proud of myself for just pulling out the content. So this is a testimony that try something new, pivot if you need to. Once it still aligns with your values, you never know what will happen, because this series literally I got nominated by the Rio Web Fest in 2 categories, and I only applied for 1.
Wow.
That's
So I'm
amazing.
excited.
Congrats,
Just,
Maggie.
I just hope everyone continues to create. All these amazing people on the panel today. I love and respect y'all, and you're doing amazing. So yes, follow them too. Okay.
Not follow them too.
Yes.
And then
And
I guess me, I'm
Michelle,
left.
yes. What is going
Um,
on? What's happening and where can we find
so
you?
you could find me on whatever is your preference. If you want to kind of follow me in terms of like you want to hear about more Canadians and what's going on in Canada, then I definitely encourage you to follow the Shot of Melanin podcast page. I recently did a podcast episode with the infamous Chid Suzanne, so you could follow her on the What Do I Know podcast. We did a great episode about The Perfect Fine on Netflix with Gabrielle Union.
Oh.
Definitely go check that out. Oh yeah,
Oh, I
go
gotta
check
watch.
that
I
out.
gotta watch. I gotta catch up.
Go check that out. It was really good. Like as she calls it, a vibe check. So you got to go check that out. So I recently just did that. I'm working towards the next season of the Shot of Melanin. Next season, so we're at season 5. I'm working on that. In the
Oh, and
meantime,
share
I
with us. Remember when we went to that podcast event? Who's your dream?
oh yes. So on my list of podcast of individuals I would like to interview, Julie Black is one of them. I suffer though from imposter syndrome, and I remember when I had like Adam Ali on my podcast, how I was like, oh my god. So I think it's more like I need to get myself mentally prepared to like talk to her. And I know Shirley, you said that you may have those. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet.
You're not?
I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. Like I'm gonna be like, hi Miss
hello,
Black.
You
Julie.
know,
Hello, Julie.
Right.
girl.
Right.
Let's just say this: 80% that it can happen.
I know, and that's what's so scary.
So
Okay.
I can help you make it.
100.
I can help you make it happen.
God,
When I told you
Listen.
I was at
that.
50, I'm at 80.
Oh my
That's all I'm gonna
days.
say.
I need to mentally prepare myself. So
Okay.
we will talk.
Okay.
But in the meantime, tomorrow, for those of you who are interested in Love is Blind, you want to discuss about it, I have this segment on my podcast live Instagram channel called Cocktails and Conversations, where we sit down and we discuss whatever the topic is. And so this time we're going to be talking about season 5 of Love is Blind. So get your favorite drinks.
Oh.
Let me know what you're drinking, because I'm always interested in making my own little cocktails. And you could find that on, again, the Shot of Melanin podcast page, as well as you could follow me on YouTube at Being Mimi, which is my handle here. So
Awesome. And me, and I'm trying to align with this whole, content aligning and being vulnerable. So some of you may know that. So I had my contract last week with my work was complete last week, and so I feel like, hi God, it's Shirley. What's going on? I feel like the universe for the past 2 years have been really like doing things and placing things like, girl, you need to do your own thing. So I am taking the leap. I am taking the jump to do my own thing. And this is one of them, like really pushing myself, pivoting, having conversations like this with content creators. And so so I am also working on season 2 of Black Canadian Creators.
Yeah.
And so I am, yes, finally working on that, pushing myself, reaching out to people like, you said your dream is Julie Black. My dream is I want to have a full season of like talking to content creators in the media space, people like, and I'm saying it in the live as like putting it out there. So
out there in the
these
universe.
people,
Yeah.
people like Tracy Moore, people like Tracy Melcher, people like Brandon Gomez, people like Cardinal Official. Like I am putting it out there to have them on,
Keisha
so
Shante.
Yes, Keisha Shante, the guys with the Legacy Awards.
Yes, me too.
Like I'm putting it out there to have them on. But also, because I'm going all in here, I want to welcome Black Canadian businesses to sponsor this conversation. So if you know any businesses or you know anyone that wants to be a sponsor for this conversation, Topics Tuesday, hit me up, Black Canadian CC or blackcanadiancreators@gmail.com. Again, putting it out there.
Yep.
You know,
Shout out
in
to
order
Catch
to
Curry tagging out Tracy
yes,
Moore and Brandon
yes,
Gomez.
okay,
Like, shout out to
yes.
you.
Thank
And
you,
Like
Keisha
girl.
right now.
Shante,
Right
girl.
now.
Thank
Let's
you,
make that
girl.
happen. This is when
So,
the village comes
yeah,
together.
Yes.
yes. So make sure to follow Black Canadian creators so that way you know the next conversation we're going to have. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, Troy,
Yes.
for being the first, for saying, yes, I'm in. You showed up for yourselves. This what is Black Canadian creators is all about. It's about spotlighting amazing creators like you guys. Thank you so much for just being here and showing up. This was a really good convo, and I hope we can bring some more in the next 2 weeks. Again,
Yes.
Do we all need to
Bye,
do the
thanks,
guys.
closing? Okay, fine.
y'all. Have
Thanks
a
for
great
joining.
rest of the
Thank
week.
you.
Bye.